What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Last Inning Touchdown Podcast, the Lit Podcast. I am here with my boy Logan on, I guess, what is our new day, Friday. We have just, I don't know, it felt weird trying to do it on Wednesday when we just got done doing it on Friday, so we kind of just pushed it off to another Friday, let things develop, give ourselves more time. So here we are. What is up, Logan?
Not much, man. Not much. Excited. But yeah, we're just doing Fridays because we did a lot of middle of the weeks for football because it made a lot of sense. Uh, basing it in the middle of the week to where you could go in between weeks for Thursday from Monday night and Thursday night's games, the end of one to the next. But right now, we're just trying to find the best time frame where news happens because baseball is not started.
Everything's an off season.
And yeah, everything's an off season. All three things we talk about off season.
But pitchers and catchers, baseball. Here we go. Baseball is gonna get started here. So to do the kind of recap that we always do at the start of this. So Tatis got himself some big boy money. Fernando Tatis, 14 years, was it 340 million or something like that? Yeah. Big boy cash. The Dodgers signed Justin Turner to a 2-year deal of 34 million with a 23 club option. The A's went and signed Rosenthal, Petit, and Sergio Romo. The Mariners brought back James Paxton, and they have Ken Giles now as well. The Mets signed Taijuan Walker. Obviously, the biggest news of all of that is the fatty money the Padres are giving to Tatis now. You got to give him some credit, though. They said this is the guy we want to be the face of our franchise for obviously the next 14 years. Let's get it done now and potentially make a career Padre.
Yeah, I'm sure he's excited. Apparently, he owed some people $30 million. So I'm sure he's excited that he can deal with that problem. Dude, I don't know. 14 years, 340. Man was completely understand it. He was the MVP in a shortened season. He was the MVP through the first 5 weeks. Man was going off. Money's getting bigger in sports, man. I mean, you're seeing basketball players making like 50 million a year. You got baseball players making. You got a 22-year-old signing a $340 million contract. You got Patrick Mahomes signs a $500 million contract. And just those three sports are just giving out money, and they're giving it out younger and younger. So yeah, it's crazy. It's
well, and I also think it's interesting too because it's like Tatis is kind of his true first season up, he was an absolute stud and then got hurt, and so it was almost like everyone forgot that even happened. And then he comes out in this shortened season and literally in the shortened season arguably became the face of baseball. He is like kind of front and center right now. He's going to be on MLB The Show next year. He was all the rant and rave for those 5 weeks that he was nuts. And
all of a sudden he made like national headlines over hitting a grand slam because they were winning by too much.
Right. He made baseball. He's kind of a good face for baseball to have right now because he's fun. Like, he's fun to watch. He's exciting. He's young. As long as he doesn't mess anything up there, he's a great face for baseball to have. He's got some personality. He's exciting to watch. He's young. And now he's got potential to be with the same team for the next 14 years. Do I think that actually ends up happening? Probably not, because nobody ends up living out those whole contracts, it seems like. But the other thing is you keep in mind is that's a fat amount of money, but you're thinking, with the way contracts are advancing, at some point that could end up being a really good deal for them. If he becomes
Harper get more per year?
I think so. So
Giancarlo Stanton got similar.
That's the thing is, if Tatis in the next 3 or 4 years becomes an MVP and salaries keep raising, that 24 million or whatever it is, you'll gladly pay that.
Yeah, he's going to make more money. He's going to be better than. He's definitely going to have better contracts than both those guys. Unless Stanton or Harper starts rolling off MVPs, Stanton just can't even play baseball. And Harper's striking out too much, and he's going the wrong direction too early. So you're sitting here going, this is going to work out because they signed him so young. It's not like you signed him to a 14-year deal and he's 29. Like,
Right.
the man's 22. Like,
Yeah,
at the end of this, he'll be Justin Turner's age, and that man's hitting 300 every year. So
right. It's very possible that he stays good for a long time too. And you just hope for a guy like that he can stay healthy and that he can stay a stud.
You want to know who we really learned has the best contract, arguably, in baseball, and what everybody's talking about because of this is the Atlanta Braves with Ronald Acuna Jr. Do I think
they
Ronald
were
Acuna
smart.
Jr. is better than Fernando Tatis Jr.? Probably not. I'm going to say no. But $10 million a year for 10 years versus $24 million a year for 14 years, they're both going to get extreme value, in my opinion. But man, that Acuna deal is
Well,
that's
and
like
that
the most elite.
and that's
That
and
might be
that's
like the most elite contract.
that's
Like, ever
it's
in
one of those
baseball
things
history.
that it's kind of like the Cardinals did with Pujols is it's really hard for a guy that's 22, 23, 24, whatever years old to look at a contract that says you're going to make $100 million in your lifetime. Do you want to turn that down? That's really hard. Even if you believe you're worth more than that, you look at that and go, I could literally step out on the field tomorrow, get hurt, and never play another game in my life.
Yep.
And then never make any of that money. Or I sign this deal and in all honesty, $100 million or $340 million. That is a huge difference in money. But in the grand scheme of things, what are you going to do with all that extra money? What do you need $240 million more? I mean, you don't need it.
And I'm sure other teams do this too, but like I said, the Cardinals with Bulls, and a less known one is Matt Carpenter made $56 million to be a top 10 MVP guy 4 times and be pretty good at baseball for a while. Now he kind of stinks, and I love him to death, but like teams do that. They sign these guys young because they go, okay, we have belief that this guy's going to be good, so we're going to offer him, $50-60 million. Cardinals did it to DeYoung and stuff like that too. And you go, okay, we have this guy's going to be good. And
yeah, because it's risky. It is risky because you never know.
All-stars, and they turn into all-stars or something, and we're only paying them $8 million a year. Worst case scenario is they suck, and we're burning $8 million a year. But to a team like the Cardinals or the Padres, like they can handle a lost $8 million.
Right.
They're paying Dexter Fowler $12 million to play for somebody else. Going into last year, they had paid Mike Leake $8 million a year to play 3 years for different teams.
Yep.
I mean, they would pay $24 million for that guy not to play for them, and now they're doing it to Fowler. I mean, the Cardinals know how to just pay for players to play for other teams. So it's a risky move, but at the same time, it's like, is it really that risky?
But yeah, because it really pays off.
Going to be good enough. Like, okay, look, let's say they were only worth $5 million. It's like, okay, well, it was worth the risk because this guy could have been. I mean, do you like
right? Because if he rolls off even all-star, he doesn't even have to be an MVP. If he rolls off just I'm an all-star player for 3 of these 5 years, it's like, dude, I just paid you $8 million for an all-star player. Like that's a steal nowadays.
Yeah, especially because of like jersey sales and stuff like that. So exactly. So I mean, all of a sudden you just sign these guys young. I mean, Tatis obviously that's why he's making a lot more in DeYoung because he's got that way bigger upside. But
well, and I think the other thing is
from these young guys that you know that at worst they're gonna stay for at least a little bit.
The big thing with a guy like Tatis is Acuna was signed almost immediately after showing he could decently do it at the major league level. Tatis became the face of baseball, and then they said, "Oh, we should extend you." So that's why Tatis got top dollar, because it's like Tatis is like, well, look, I'm the face of baseball. You can sign me now or I'll go make my money later. Where Acuna was still young and still kind of entering Major League Baseball, and he was a stud, but like he wasn't grabbing, huge coverage already. Like Tatis is like, look, dude, I'm all over the limelight. Like you got to pay me for that. So, and I think that's where I don't think they never would have been able to, get Tatis on one of those steal of a deals.
You also have to make up, like, this is a thing in sports. Like, you got to pay players more to play in California because they're taxed their lives away,
right,
for the money. So, but it's funny to me that they're both kind of they both kind of blew up on like the Twitter spheres for different reasons. Like Tatis blew up on Twitter when he broke the old man baseball rules of don't swing 3-0 up 5. Like, well, I don't know what the rule is, but obviously it's stupid. And then Acuna broke Twitter when the Marlins just kept mowing him with fastballs for no reason.
Shouldn't have been standing there.
Just because he was just roasting baseballs. and that guy freaking hits him on the first pitch of a game with a fastball, and he's like,
What's going to be interesting about that is when Urias, who is now with the Mets, I think, so still in division. Let's see if he still throws them.
Is that the guy?
That is the guy. I believe that the Mets.
I just think of Julio Urias when you say something like that, and he's on the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm blanking now. What the hell was his?
I don't remember. I just remember he just kept hitting
Urania.
He kept hitting Acuna, and then he hits him on the first pitch of a game, and somehow he didn't get thrown out. And Acuna and everyone threw a fit. And if I was a Braves fan, I'd be throwing a fit too. You keep hitting my young star.
He went to Detroit. I lied. I must be getting things confused here, but it's all right. So
FD God's a DPS.
You know what? I've had it. I do like the on a different note here. I do like the Mets signing of Taijuan Walker at $10 million a year. Taijuan Walker was one of those guys that was always supposed to be really, really good and has never lived up to it. And $10 million for a starting pitcher nowadays is a freaking low ball offer, honestly. So it's like, dude, that's a good steal for the Mets there, is they got a potential high upside guy. And I mean, think about the pitchers the Mets have rolled out in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Maybe they can make something work with Taijuan Walker and figure something out. I mean, they've got something working. Yeah, I mean, he was always a high upside guy who really never lived up to it. I'm very interested to see. I'm really interested to see if the Mets can, put it all together for him and make him a stud. Because I always really liked him. There was a lot of rumors back in the day that the Marlins were going to trade Ozuna for Walker when Ozuna showed up to camp like 20 pounds overweight So that was a
year after he was good.
Yeah, and then so it was interesting. I've always liked that guy, and so I'm a big fan of that signing for the Mets there. Justin Turner returning to the Dodgers is not so interesting one. We kind of figured that that's where Turner would end up after some of the other pieces fell. But yeah, so I think we've got some stuff definitely rolling here in Major League Baseball. I'm excited for spring training to start. I got an email from MLB TV. It sounded like that I get spring training with my Marlins little single team viewership, so I'm hoping that I get to watch some spring training games as well.
Well, you can really watch spring training games too, not like.
Oh yeah,
with the way your work schedule is.
Right. I used to pull them up on one screen and just sit there and watch them while I was waiting for phone calls and stuff.
Yeah, because the way my life works is I'll never see them because you don't play night spring training games, and I friggin' work till hella late. So, yeah, you're gonna live the dream there. I'm gonna go through some Cardinal news in here. So the Cardinals, I don't know if this happened last week yet, but the Cardinals officially signed Yachty. I think that already happened last week.
I think we did mention it.
Yeah, but they officially signed Yachty. So they pretty much have their team set. Spring training opened. The first person that was there was Nolan Arenado 3 days before spring training, like before even pitchers and catchers showed up. And then the Cardinals had pretty much half their young outfielders show up early, like Dylan Carlson, Tyler O'Neill, and Justin Williams showed up early. And then Nolan Gorman got granted permission to show up early. And then because Nolan Gorman, who he is, for people that don't know, because they're probably not Cardinals fans, is he's the Cardinals' number 2 overall prospect behind Dylan Carlson, who should be starting every day in right field. He is a third baseman. So he either has to change his position or never play pro baseball. Because the Cardinals, if Nolan Arenado stays in St. Louis, which stars tend to stay, so I hope that continues, especially with the way this Colorado Rockies gave us all this money. Nolan Gorman showed up early to practice second base with guys like Jose Akendo and Ozzie Smith and stuff like that.
So you want to know something funny about that? Underneath all of my notes about contracts, I have written down Gorman arrives early and plays second base. So I also noted that, and we didn't even discuss that beforehand. I noted that as something I was going to bring up to you.
For anyone who wants to understand how me and Jason do this, we have never had a discussion beforehand of what we're doing. We just roll in here with notes. Sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. I think mainly his notes are MLB free agent signings, just so he knows all the names.
Yeah, I literally just I go on MLB. They have a tracker, and I literally just copy and paste everything that's happened in the previous week, just so that way I can know the dollar amounts, who signed who, and then all our other conversations are kind of just off the dome.
Nolan Gorman's learning second base, and he's got some good guys like a Kendo, and obviously the Wizard of Ozzie Smith out there.
So I think
would have been nice for him to start learning second base in the last year from a guy named Colton Wong, but it's exciting. I mean, it's good to see all the young outfielders showing up early because they know they're going to be fighting for playing time because the three main guys are probably going to open the year no matter pretty much what happens in spring, unless someone comes in just roasting every baseball. We're going to see Bader in center, O'Neill in left, and Carlson in right, unless they move Carlson and O'Neill. But I believe they have three center fielders in their outfield, so they're living good on the defensive side of it. It's just, can two of them hit? We know Carlson's gonna hit. It's just, how long is it going to take him, and how good is he going to be? Because he is only 22 in his first full season. He did hit well last year. He came up and was absolutely awful. They sent him down, then called him back up. And when they called him back up, the dude just roasted baseballs, and then he was hitting fourth in the postseason for us. And they pretty much walked him every single time, I swear, in the postseason. But it's exciting. So, I'm excited, and this is going to be weird, but like the Cardinals, because of when you're really good for really long, and this is going to be kind of a cocky statement, the Cardinals have been good for really long, or at least close to really good for really long. They missed the playoffs 3 or 4 years in a row, but each of those years they went into the last series of the season with an opportunity to make the playoffs still. But what happens is when you don't draft really high, you don't have like big name prospects walking into play as often. Guys like the Padres who are living the dream right now have all these prospects that are like, oh, we have all these top 100 prospects, and a good chunk of them are hitting. Well, good for you. Cardinals don't live that life because they don't have a top 10 pick to relying on all the time. I mean, they've had these young stars, but they tended to all be pitchers recently. So it's exciting for me to see, because all their big guys were always Shelby Miller and Michael Wacha. And I mean, to be fair, those guys didn't really turn out, but they turned out, Matthew Liberatore, Luke Weaver, Dakota Hudson. I mean, those are all pitchers. They've never had a big hitter. So for me as a Cardinal fan, I'm just so excited because the last time they had a good hitter was in 2013, and his name was Oscar Taveras, and he passed away very shortly after. Maybe in 2014. It was 2014. And then he passed away during that off season. So
which, if anyone remembers, was a very tragic couple years there. Because Taveras died, Jose Fernandez died, and then Yodan Ventura also died, all in like a 2-year span. So it was like a bunch of young players just disappeared from baseball.
And they were going to be stars. Like Taveras was going to be an absolute star in the league. Jose Fernandez was arguably the best pitcher in the world. And Ventura was a guy who could go out there and allow 8 in less than an inning, or a guy who could throw 9 innings, 1 hit, no walks. And you're like, okay.
Right.
So it'd be,
so
3 guys.
So
you can see, like, it's just crazy.
On this conversation of Nolan Gorman taking these reps at second base, this is an interesting thing to me as a non-Cardinals fan, because someone who's been a solid person in your lineup, in Tommy Edman, potentially sees himself without a true role. He could still be a super utility kind of role, but it's like, I mean, you're not. I don't see a super utility necessarily being used as often when you have a guy like Arenado, and if Gorman lives up to be what he's supposed to be, like, yeah, like, so now you're really limiting where you need a utility type player. And I know that Edman is not the impact bat like Gorman could be. I mean, I definitely understand why you'd play Gorman. But then it's kind of like, what are you going to do with Edman, who's shown that he can be a solid major league player too? And that's what's kind of an interesting thing there, because...
Well, you got to realize Nolan Gorman's 20.
Right. I'm not saying he's stealing his job right this second, but...
And exactly, he doesn't play second base. He's showing up playing. Like, he was the third baseman of the future for the St. Louis Cardinals. He didn't become a second baseman until like 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So, like... So I can guarantee the second that trade was made, that man goes, all right, time to go to the baseball field, time to buy a new glove, time to do some different things. And his life changed pretty drastically a couple weeks ago because he really was the third baseman of the future for the Cardinals. And all of a sudden you said, okay, he's not a third baseman for the Cardinals at all if Nolan Arenado sticks around. So he's definitely not going to be ready defensively at all. But he's
also an athletic stud though. He's an athletic stud though. Like there's no way he doesn't pick up second base quickly.
He's gonna pick if Matt Carpenter can pick up second base in an offseason, he can pick up second base, and that's once again, I love Matt Carpenter. So I just do think it's interesting with Tommy Edman only being 25. I'm just interested to see what they do with him because, in all honesty, Tommy hit a baseball above high A.
Tommy Edman is a Cardinal. Like he is definition what the Cardinals want out of a player.
Schumacher.
He is
Garcia, Daniel Descalso.
But I think he's better than those guys. I think that he has
better than Skip, but he's better than the other two.
I feel like to me Tommy Edman is more. But
he can be a big impact.
He can be
really fast.
Yeah, he's more of if he is playing second base to me, he could be an everyday player just fine. Where Skip Schumacher to me wasn't really an everyday player.
What?
To me, Skip Schumacher was never really an everyday player.
Skip Schumacher was a career, like, that man roasted. He was a guy kind of similar to John Jay, where no one really cared, but all of a sudden when you realized it and you got down the nitty-gritty, the dude just hit. Like, Skip Schumacher, 2007, hit, okay, I guess we're the one count that was only 200 at-bats, but then he hit 302, 303, 265, 283, 276. I mean, good numbers and a majority at bats on a lot of good Cardinal baseball teams, by the way, including a World Series winning team where he had 400 at bats. But
with Skip Schumacher, so this is where I'm getting at. I do think that's a fair comparison for Edman to Skip Schumacher. But Skip Schumacher played the majority of his games in the outfielder as an outfielder, and I don't think
in the outfielder.
He was in the outfielders, every single one of them. But to me, Tommy Edman is not an everyday outfielder. But if he's playing second base or infield, that's where I thought he was an everyday player. Where Skip Schumacher, if I remember right, was not, when he tried playing second base, he wasn't very good.
Well, he was a second baseman for like his career.
I don't know about that one, but I don't believe him.
So he played outfield and they moved him to second.
I don't believe he was a very good second baseman either, though.
I don't know if he was that good either.
It looks like all of his things are negative for being a fielder, both in the outfield and second base. So I don't believe he was a very good fielder, where Tommy Edman is an all-around good ball player. Yeah.
And also, I'm sad that he's playing second. I mean, it's amazing he's playing second because I got Nolan Arenado at third. But I seriously, and I'm about to watch Nolan Arenado's arm, so maybe I'm an idiot. I love watching Tommy Edman throw a baseball. And I know that I'm going to love watching Nolan Arenado throw a baseball. Tommy Edman throws absolute missiles. The dude could play. That's why they've used him in all three outfield positions and third. He throws missiles. I swear
he absolutely does.
On the mound. What?
I said he absolutely does. My problem with Edman, though, is that offensively, outfield and third base tend to carry more offense than he provides. Yeah, that's where his value to me is that's where his value is kind of diminished at those positions, because it's like, yeah, you're a stud, but out of those positions I need something you can't provide me, even though you're a great player. But he was better than what they had.
Center or second.
Right.
That's kind of what he's.
And so now that wouldn't be awful if Harrison Bader can't figure it out, and Nolan Gorman, for whatever reason, starts climbing through the system, and maybe not even this year, but I'm just saying in general, he starts flying. If he, in the future, starts flying through the system. I mean, Tommy Edman's only 25. If Harrison Bader can't figure it out, you say, hey, Tommy, let's play center, or you use one of your, because I still don't want him in a corner outfield. So, yeah, he really would need to move to center, and then you could play Gorman at second, and then you're looking at a pretty solid little team there. But
I just know that I'm the only person in the world that's a believer in Harrison Bader.
I have told you before, I actually really like Harrison Bader. I like watching him play. I like the way he plays. I just like the athletic, flashy play. Honestly, what he reminds me of playing wise is young Colton Wong, honestly. Like, he makes all the big flashy plays. Now he doesn't miss the routine plays. Like, he's just a stud fielder.
You can't really do that as an outfielder. It's a
But
lot harder to mess up routine plays as an outfielder than
So to me, like, he kind of reminds me of a young Colton Wong, though, where he's struggling to hit, but man, that dude is an athlete. Like, he is such a stud athlete, and he plays such a fun game. You just want to see him put it all together, because it's like, man, dude, you're a fun player if you could figure it out.
Oh man, his OPS last year was so impressive for like how like people bad he thought he was. I mean, I hope he can figure it out offensively, because that guy is so amazing in center field that if he can figure it out kind of offensively, he's going to be an everyday game changer because of just his speed. The thing that I hate about him most, because I love him, but how is a guy who is literally a top 5 speed in baseball not steal bases? It blows my mind.
It probably hurts you when you're never on base.
When you don't read base. I know. But at the same time, he had a 336 on base. You know what place that was in the Cardinals last year? 3rd. Is that good? No, but he only had 4 attempts.
Well, I mean, but you also got to keep in mind though that also he was batting, very low in the order, so he may have been trapped behind people a lot.
My thing, that's true. He could be trapped behind people. But my thing is when you're on a team that doesn't hit home runs, what do? You got to take extra bases. The Cardinals lead the league in steals at 3 of the last 4 years, something like that.
Maybe he's just not a good base runner.
And I guess just
doesn't get the good jumps.
God, please. That's why I love watching Colton Wong. But I really wish I love. I don't know. I like the Cardinals team. I'm one of those guys that's going to be too high on their team this year.
So what's interesting though is
Jason's always down on the team, and I always say, Jason, you're wrong. This is one of those years where I believe that I'm just going to be way higher than.
So the thing is about the Cardinals is the Cardinals every year on paper are never as good as they perform. That's always what happens. But what's interesting though is what's got you so excited about the Cardinals team is a big reason why I've been a Marlins fan for so long, because I think it's so exciting to just watch young players come into the league and try and do something. And honestly, for the longest time, young players coming in and doing something was never the Cardinal way. That was never what they did. They held on to those young guys forever.
Yeah.
And so now it's had
to hit 14 home runs in spring training to make the team.
Right.
Tony La Russa said, "I'm not playing him."
It is a very exciting game when you get to watch young players develop. In my opinion, that is something that I love about baseball, and that's why the Marlins have always been a very interesting team to me, is because I love watching developing young players. I haven't loved watching my favorite players leave all the time, but the thing is with the Marlins is they've always done a pretty good job, though, is when the good ones leave, someone else comes up and kind of becomes your next good one. They've done a good job at that.
The problem is they never win baseball.
They don't. They don't win any baseball games.
They don't win enough baseball games for it to ever matter.
It is what it is at that point. But that completes my notes for MLB. I don't know about you.
I'm just excited for the Cardinals. I think that their projections have overhyped them in previous years. And I think this year the projections have drastically underhyped them. The projections have them being worse than they were last year projected. And I don't see how this team has a lower projection than last year's team when you added
I saw a projection.
Nolan Gorman and Miles Michaelis to the team, and Jordan Hicks is now back, and everyone else is pretty much the same. I mean, you lost Colton Wong, but you gained Nolan Arenado. I mean, and Dexter Fowler, who has been pretty awful. I was actually okay with him in 2020, and I was okay with him at the end of 2019. So I'll give it to him. But I think Dylan Carlson, just the possibility is an upgrade. I don't know. It's weird to me that they're projecting them like 6 less wins than they've done the last couple of years, or whatever. But their team's better, and I also think their pitching staff is rated their pitching staff like 23rd. They're starting, which is weird to me considering the Cardinals had like a top 5 starting staff in like 3 of the last 5 seasons, regardless of who they threw out there. So I'm really, even though like Kim's back, Waino had a decent year, Miles Michaelis coming back from injury, Carlos Martin. I mean, they have like 8 starters, like 8 MLB ready starters, counting some guys in the minor leagues, and they have them projected so bad. It's weird that it's like they downplayed their pitching.
Well,
the
projections going into this year, what I've seen, have been pretty stupid in my opinion.
The
The projections have
rankings are the worst rankings I've ever seen in my life.
All of the rankings I've seen have the Marlins being like a bottom like 3 team in the entire MLB again. And yet somehow they have the Phillies at like 500. It's like you do realize the Marlins were considerably better than the Phillies last year. And the Phillies have done nothing to change their team.
You do realize that the PECOTA standings had the Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Cardinals, and Atlanta Braves all winning 83 or less games.
That's insane.
It was 84 or less games. It's about the Cardinals are probably in like
3 playoff teams.
In the Cardinals, anyone's mind, especially with the Cubs are just dumping salary, they're the favorite in the Central. The Braves are hands down the favorite in the East until the Mets prove them otherwise, or the Nationals or something. Because I mean, what the Braves did last year was they just dominated. And then
we could have a whole conversation about the East, but we don't have time for that.
And then the White Sox, all they did was score the most runs in baseball and add
a lot. They've added good stuff.
They added Lance quietly to a starting staff. They added Liam Hendricks to the bullpen. And so, like, they added good things, spent more money, didn't lose anything major. I mean, lost James McCann, but they already had Grandal. Like, it's weird that somehow a team like the White Sox, who had the 3rd best record in the American League but fell to the 7th seed, but like it just didn't make any sense. It just blew my mind. What was happening? It was 4th best record. It just blew my mind what was happening.
Yeah, I really don't understand
especially the White Sox. Like the White Sox are clearly.
Well, honestly, and I know
a young pitcher who threw a no-hitter into the 7th of his first ever playoff game.
I think
Keiko, who had a sub-2 ERA. They added Lance Lynn. They added Liam Hendricks. Luis Roberts going into his 2nd season. He's a friggin' stud. You got Tim Anderson over there.
I know you mentioned it.
MVP of Jose Abreu, Yasmani Grandal, Yo Makata. Hopefully, he's recovered from COVID because he got his ass handed to him by COVID and was hospitalized for a long time.
And he's stud.
And but he had a really down year after a really high 2019 because he said, dude, like COVID kicked my ass. He's like, I could barely get out of bed some days. And then you have a guy who has no idea even how to play defense, but just absolutely roasts baseballs in left field. And I don't even know who they're throwing out and right, but like I don't know how that team.
I think what's interesting is
to 83.
You are definitely supporting this White Sox being too low, but honestly, in my opinion, and I know you mentioned it, but I don't know if you're being modest, but I think the Cardinals are just as neglected as everything you just said for the White Sox because there's no one in their division. Like there's no one for them to play. Why would they not? Like, who is going to beat them all those games?
And that's what I said.
That's what I don't understand.
The White Sox is like the Indians just unloaded, right? They unloaded like multiple different studs on that team that are no longer there. And then you have 2 absolutely horrific baseball teams in Detroit and Kansas City. Kansas City did get better. I'll give it to them. They actually had a quietly sneaky offseason for a small market team. I'll give them that. And I think everyone will give them that for a small market team. They've had some good signings, even added a decent left fielder. But I mean, that's a lot of free wins when you're playing Detroit, right? So the White Sox are going to go like 15-4 against Detroit, and then you're going to go like 13-6 against Cleveland and Kansas City. That's just a lot of free wins, like not even contested because of how bad the teams are. Like the Cardinals should go 15-4 against Pittsburgh. I mean, all the Reds did was get worse. They tried for 2 months to be good and then said, never mind, we're restarting. I don't know what we're doing. We don't even know what we're doing. Our announcer said some bad things. We're just letting everyone leave. We're letting Bauer go. We're letting everyone go. We don't care. We're emptying house. And then the Brewers didn't really do much. I don't know if they lost anything. They did gain Colton Wong, who's probably the best defensive second baseman in the game, but like
I'm not a big buyer that the Brewers were that good anyways, though.
I'm not a big buyer that the Brewers haven't been good at all, but somehow they win baseball games. Craig Counsell's doing something good over there because somehow they win baseball games. And the Cubs just unloaded like their whole team. Like the only reason they were good. They just unloaded all the reasons they were good. And they're even talking about getting rid of Contreras, and it's like
there's been conversation of Chris Bryant going too.
But Chris Bryant, he won an MVP in the World Series and never really been the same. So the fact that you get rid of Contreras but keep Bryant is a weird one to me.
It is. There's a lot of
get rid of Bryant,
craziness going around right now, and we could probably talk about it forever.
Yeah.
But we will stop it there for baseball.